Hello everybody, I'm day weather meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this September 27th, 2025, brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated, also brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors. Well, the weather trends here on the last days of September into early October are pretty warm, but we did see over the past week another round of some pretty good precipitation for parts of Colorado and Wyoming in particular. Picked up some significant needed moisture and some mountain snow. So good news, and as we go through the next few days, we'll have some showers and thunderstorms in the desert Southwest and the southern Rockies, so that's good to see. Some early fall precipitation in some parts of the West. Now, as we take a look at where we're going to go for another week, we still don't see any widespread hard freeze conditions. We're going to go through the rest of September into early October with really nothing that looks very cold. Now, once we get a little further into October, after October 8th, roughly around that date, either a little before or a little after, certainly it does look like the West will see some opportunities for colder weather and maybe some freezing conditions. In the last 7 days, a good slug of moisture really needed right here across portions of Wyoming into northeast Colorado, into the plains here. There was a narrow band, but pretty significant rainfall in that band. Also, across parts of the central and eastern Dakotas, and you can see California and Arizona did well, parts of southern New Mexico as well, and smatterings of shower activity elsewhere. Also, some of the dry areas of the Midwest picked up some needed rainfall as well. The latest drought monitor does show the expansion of dryness in the eastern Corn Belt, and we of course have the very droughty conditions west of the divide in the nation's midsection. Soil moisture conditions are pretty good. Now, if you look at the last 2 weeks where you see the green areas, drought conditions have improved. So we've gotten some pockets, and that's a good way to describe it, not widespread, but pockets of some drought relief. Temperature-wise, it's been pretty warm over the past week, except underneath where that low pressure system was earlier this week that brought the rain and high country snow to parts of Wyoming and Colorado. When we look at what's coming next week, we're basically going to be in a strong southwest flow that will flood a lot of the lower 48 with some very warm Pacific air, mild Pacific air for late September into early October. So September ends warm, October starts warm, but then as we see tropical activity pick up, that's going to alter the jet stream pattern once we get past October 8th. And speaking of the tropics, we've got Humberto here, which is going to become a major hurricane, but is likely going to curve back out into open waters. This is going to become Tropical Storm Imelda, and this is a concern for the southeastern United States. This is where the hurricane will go, but Imelda is going to go towards the coast of the southeastern United States, and we could see very heavy rain in the Carolinas, Georgia, maybe northeast Florida, up the mid-Atlantic. This will be something early next week to keep an eye on. When we look at precipitation, you can see that heavy precipitation next week there. Notice, though, the Pacific Northwest, parts of the Rockies get back into moisture again. This is going to be late next week and towards next weekend, and even some high elevation snow chances. Most of this comes the weekend after this one. So that's why we'll probably go a week into October with nothing too cold. But after that, things change. What we are looking here is what we call a teleconnection, where we take the Pacific Ocean and we measure the pressure patterns. And one thing we've noticed historically is when the pressure patterns change, we put these into what we call oscillations. Either they're positive oscillations or negative oscillations. Well, when the Eastern Pacific Oscillation goes into a negative phase or gets close to negative phases, that's when you can expect the weather to change. When it's in a positive phase, it tends to be warm in the West. Negative phases gets cooler and more wet. And right around the 1st of October, but right around those second weeks of October, we go into some negative phases and go below that negative phase. And the Pacific North American Oscillation, which is a similar indicator, also goes strongly negative, especially right around that 7th, 8th, 9th of October. So once we get past the first week or so of October, does look like colder weather for the West. Have yourself a good week ahead. We'll see you next Saturday.